see this, I hope. Huh, how can I open the chat option? I can't see the chat, I mean, while I'm presenting, huh?
I'll look at the chat.
Okay, cool. Um,
If you guys have any questions throughout the workshop, or if you have any concerns or not following, or if you just want to say hi, you can message in the chat. I'll be moderating it.
uh, should we give it like a few minutes?
Give it to 8:10 at the latest.
Okay. What time is it? Okay, please. 8:10 the latest. So today we'll be talking about how to build your own website, and we're just going to wait a few more minutes for people to settle today. And I hope that everybody has a really good morning. Um, hoping that everybody has been enjoying the workshops as well. This is my first workshop, so I am like, we'll see. I think this is being recorded. Uh,
It is.
okay, cool. Where can they find the recordings?
All recordings will be on our YouTube channel, which you can find if you go to the welcome section. We have a link to our YouTube page, and we'll
Cool.
be uploading them as soon as possible after each workshop.
Awesome. Thanks. Is it okay that I start in a minute? Or am
Go
I?
for it.
Okay, cool.
I'm just gonna send one more message, and then go ahead and start.
All right. I think now would be a good time, right?
Go for it.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. My name is Allison Ross. I am part of the engineering team at Hack Merced, and I work on creating components for their website. Um, Adrian's going to also be here, uh, helping me with some of the slides. And today we're going to be going over how to build your own website. And we're going to make like a static local website. And Adrian can also like add to whatever I'm saying. So just giving you a heads up. Um, so this is like going to be within your computer. in a folder, and you'll be just running it locally, right? So it's not actually going to be like hosted anywhere. We're not going to be going over that. We're just going to be going over how to actually make a website locally. Um, so yeah, I'll be going on the next slide. So for those of you that don't know what HTML is, it's a hypertext markup language. So it's not a programming language. That's something that I had to learn the hard way sometimes. CSS also, I don't think that's a programming language either. Uh, so for HTML, it uses markup tags. It has like those little um, brackets that look like triangles. There's probably like a more specific term for them. They describe web pages. CSS, those are cascading style sheets. They make your website really pretty. They display HTML elements. They are used in conjunction, inline, embedded within the HTML element, internal, placed within the header info, and external, coded in a separate document. So it just kind of depends um, on how you're going to be uh, displaying those elements. If Adrian wants to add anything, just let me know. So I'll be going to the next slide. The first thing that we'll be doing, I would create the folder first. So create a folder for your project, for your website, and then inside that folder, you will have your index.html. You can just literally create a new file, name it index.html, and you should be able to edit it with Notepad if you really wanted to, or you can even use like Visual Studio Code. Any type of like editing software would work. So, oh, you
The
want to say
beauty is
something?
that HTMLs, like files, don't require any installation of any software to run on your computer. As long as you have a browser, you already have the software needed to run an HTML file.
Right. And we'll be doing this locally. So no need to like be hosting anything anywhere. So you'll just be running it on the browser. Is there a question in the chat? Oh, okay. So we'll be adding like some really essential things. We'll be adding like the HTML tag that specifies that it is an HTML file. We'll be adding like a head tag, a body tag. Make sure that the head and the body tag are inside the HTML tag. This should be okay. So once you save that, you can click Control S for that to save. That's a really good shortcut to save the file. And after you're done with that, you can go back to your folder, double click on the file, the index.html, and it should take you to this blank page. So it should be able to actually open something. Like right now, we don't have anything in it, but it should be able to actually like be there. So yeah. Then you can add like the title. Make sure that that's inside the head. So something that I might have to specify later. Oh, is someone in the chat? Can you get that, Adrian? Something that I might have to talk about later is about like the difference between a head and a header. I'll also be talking more about the footer, but right now we're just going to have the head. We're going to have a title. This title is going to be, oh, did I just do that? Sorry. My first website, the body is going to have one layer of heading. In bold, it's going to display Mary's website. There's another second layer of heading. In italics, it's going to mention Mrs. Styles, and it's shown here. This is my very first website, and I'm extremely excited. So that would be an underline. So the U tag does an underline. P tag, I believe that's paragraph. BR would be like line break. So that would be, you can go ahead and add those. Control S to save your file, and now you should be able to have some text actually being displayed. And it should have like the specified tags like being applied to the text. You can also add images. To add like any like references, those should go to the head. Those should not go to the body. And you would have to also put like we're going to be creating a CSS file. So if once you go to this point of the presentation, you would have to go back to your folder and create a new file. And you should name this styles.css. You would then have to reference that file to this HTML file here with the link tag. And what that does is that it should be able to, like the HTML, should be able to reference that style sheet. So then you can make your website all pretty, right? You can add like a div. So then when you have a div, you can also go back to your CSS, the cascading style sheet, which also the cascading style sheet, you would have to also be editing that the same way that you're editing your HTML. So you don't even have to download anything else for that either. That can be also done in a notepad or anything like that. As long as you can actually edit it, you should be able, editing it and saving it, you should be able to, this should be able to work too. So we'll be going over how to style it. So within the style.css, we're going to be referencing to the body and adding like a background. You can add whatever the color you want. I believe that there's also like hex like colors that you can look up, like color pickers online. If you want like a very specific color, you can just add it there. And there's this text align being added to the body. And the header, we have, it seems like they have a font size of 50 pixels, 50 pixels large. So if Adrian wants to add anything, let me know. So Control S, make sure that you save. So we'll explore a little bit more about HTML and CSS, and then I'll make sure that this gets like handed to people so they can actually make their website and go a little bit slower if they need to. Oh, Adrian, can you
Yes.
talk about this
So,
slide?
the way like a website's broken up is we like to call them HTML elements or like blocks on the page because it's like one giant document in a sense. And so the more conventional way of breaking things up is by breaking them up in a section and or a div, which stands for dividers, or an article, which would be like a whole page. Usually sections are parts of articles, and divs are just places on your page when you don't know what you want to call it. It doesn't have any special meaning, but you want to contain it inside of some block. So you would wrap around div. If on the right here you see that an example of setting up like a news article page, we have a header that defines everything. Then we have a navigation and notified by nav. Inside of that, we have an article that has a section inside of it. So articles are main content in this sense, while the section is content inside of that main block. While we have an aside box, which allows us to put in more information and like little widgets on the side of our main content and allow it to not intrude in our main article. and then we can easily add a footer tag at the bottom to display any contact information or any other resources. And some examples of different types of tags in HTML is there's 6 different classes of headers, H1 being the largest text, H6 being the smallest. Is you also have things like strong M mark, or where they change up like the uh, font thickness of your text. Next, but then you also have things like del, int, and a brief block quote that change up the style of how text is presented on the screen. And then you have things that are like cite, where like if you need to uh, say you're writing like a paper and you always have that like works cited at the very end. Cite is if you want to make a formal citation of something. You have figure and fig caption, and for if you need to add a special figure, and you need to add like a little caption so that way your site is accessible to any audience. And then making lists, it comes by default as UL and OL, being unordered and ordered lists. So if you do unordered, it just gives you a bullet list. If you do ordered list, it would automatically number them 1 through however many items you have.
Mm. Oh, here's
And
another.
then to add on to that, when you look inside of like the H1 selector, there, so we're making some text that's going to be on the screen. It's going to be really large. This is like a heading text. What you can do for styling it is we would give it a property. It is what you call the style of, say, the color. And that color would give it a value of blue. And then we'd give it another property of font size. And by doing this method where we can just add a property, add a value, allows us to manipulate a uh, anything from color or size of text, weight of text, X the casing of text, X the position of text, X the opacity of text. We can also add animations to it by just nesting all these properties inside of one declaration block and giving them all values for one selector. So how I mentioned before, there's like for HTML element blocks, how we have a section, div, and article. Each one can have their own set chunk of declarations with their own set of like 40 properties, all completely customizing your whole field. If you look at the example here where we said header, nav with an article and a side with a footer at the end, and each one of those sections has their own declaration block, and every child element inside of it has even more, making HTML one of the most powerful like markup languages in the world, because you have customizability on every single pixel on your screen, and you can manipulate any type of text, any little margin, any block, any movement.
Oh, so for this one, I added this little tidbit here. I just wanted to clarify that the head goes outside the body. It goes on top of the body, okay? So make sure that the head is not inside your body. And the head, you're going to be adding like your page metadata, such as the style sheet, and a header. That's where you can add like any navigational bars, a search bar, logos, or anything like that. The header goes inside the body. You know, I found interesting. The footer also goes inside the body, but like the head goes outside. So I found that really funny. I believe that's because in the body, that's actually being displayed, and in the head, that's actually just data that's not actually being displayed. Um, Also, I want to mention that the main tag is there. The previous slides didn't have the main tag, but I just wanted to mention the main tag real quick. It holds content unique to that page. It should not contain content that's repeated throughout the pages, right? And that should be like a nav bar, right? You don't want stuff like that that's being like repeated throughout like the rest of the page in your main. So I just wanted to let everybody know that the main is inside the body, footer is inside the body, but the head is not. So I found that really interesting. I believe the next slide I kind of wanted. Oh, okay. So I can take a crack at this, but Adrian can help me a little bit. So the front end, that's usually generally speaking what the user gets to see. So that's like the really pretty like animations and the colors and anything that has to do with like um, how it looks like in the front. But at the back end, that's generally like the logic. I'm not sure if it's actually going to. Oh no, it's stuck in the bottom. uh, I'm not sure how to fix that real quick. Wonder if I can just get out of here. Should I? Oh, there it is. Cool. So everybody can see it. There you go. So the front end is how things look. So any of the images, that's usually like your CSS, JavaScript, and then the back end is how things work. Any of the logic. Um, so like databases and stuff like that, like things that have to deal with like data about like like user data. Adrian can add more about this because I think he works more on the back end, and I work more on the front end. So um, that's that. Um, let's learn about more about CSS. So I think Adrian can take this one over too.
Yeah. So uh, basically, he what we've already talked about is how we said everything's like a block, right? Everything is a section, has its own element, and in HTML, well, all of that. Look in here. Let me grab my. Where's the pointer? Why is there not a pointer? Okay, we don't have a pointer. But here on the left, where you see it says position and margin border, there, what you see here in the blue, the 1000 by 100, that right there is saying what is the size of the whole entire container. Here, what you see in the green here is what we call padding, and this orange here is what we call border. Now, the actual block itself, like whatever HTML thing we made, is actually this like yellowish thing right here. Here. And anything inside of it is this blue section. Padding is how much space should we put around the inner text or inner child blocks of a current block. While margin is how much spacing should we put separating that block from another block. So say we put like um, two two divs next to each other. If you want to space them out, you would adjust the margin, making a space in between them. But let's say we made a button and we put text in it. If you want to make the button in the center with like I don't know 50 pixels on every side, you would adjust the padding. And so padding is for like internal spacing, and margins for external spacing. But then border is for the trim around the block. So keep that in mind when you're working with things. Position, the stuff in the white, is used for if you're gonna change up the physical position, and is really only applied if you make the position absolute, because that's when you're gonna physically say from whatever screen I'm looking at, I want it to be set to this hard-coded position on my screen at all times. Most of the time, it's not really useful, unless you have like a page that doesn't scroll or doesn't move, like it just stands still, then it's like super useful. Um, what you can see here, CSS styling. And if you want to make a style, uh, like injection where you can edit the CSS of your website, right? There's three different options we have here. We have a link, we have a style equals, and a style tag. Now, the reason why we have an X on the link tag is because this is for importing style sheets from other places. It's not adding your own style. This is like, hey, I want to borrow some pre-made CSS from somewhere else, and I would inject it with a link. The style equals is where you can throw this into an HTML element. Like if I said it, here in this little editor on the head, if I said style equals to the right of the D on the word head, then I could add my own custom CSS, but it's kind of weird because you have to put it in a certain format that's different than the normal CSS. So it's a good thing for if you're injecting styles and stuff within in like JavaScript. But if you're in the realm of just HTML and CSS, the style tag is the proper way because it's following the HTML markup language and allows you to put it in this like a key value pairing style where you declare before the little curly brace what class or HTML element you're going to modify, right? And you list out the key for what property you want and the value of how you want to modify it. And you can just make a long list, no limitations. You can just keep going and keep listing out a whole bunch of different things.
Oh, can you take over this one as well?
Yes. Just to answer the question in chat real quick, Nick asking, because you're saying I use jQuery, uh, or use your JavaScript to write query for SQLite. Is that counted as backend? And that is counted as backend because you're accessing a database. But if you're using that JavaScript to put that data on the front end code and like make custom HTML elements, that is counted as front end. And the only backend part of it is when you contact that physical database within SQLite. So here we have a little a, just a simple a, and it may seem simple to just type an a because you don't need CSS. You could just type the a, but we want this like little blue line right here, and notice how thick the actual letter is. So we're just going to create a quick a, like a custom drawn a, not just typing in. So we're going to make a position relative. If just set it from the left positioning, so that way it's a bit in the center. Give it some width and height, and give it a border, so that way it looks nice and thick. Heck, this blue line right here, we're able to manipulate the single side of our letter A by using our transform function, where we're able to skew it by -19 degrees and set a position of absolute. And then this top and left is how, if you go to the slide before, Allison, go one slide back real quick. This white section here, we can manipulate that with the top and the left property. So if you go back, so we're just saying, hey, we want to position it there, and we're going to set content to none. That's just an empty string. So no content, and then just give it a nice background color, and set the width and height, right? And that gives us this like initial layout. And notice how we did this in the .a colon before. Because we did it in the before tag, as you can see here on the right, pseudo element, and it takes into a place. Our actual element is the .a tag. Our before is what will happen, and then our after is the next layer, and then our actual content is what gets shown. So when we create the .a tag, it got created on the lowest level. Then the next thing that the user sees will be the before tag. Then they'll see whatever's in the after, and then they'll see what's the actual content. So by doing it in this fashion, we're able to actually put a mask over the left side before they see the actual A, and then we can, I got kind of cut off there, but in the after, here we added just more code to it to finalize the design to make it nice and flushed out. And then in the content, that's where we actually show the final A. And by doing this, we can make custom stripes edits to any text, any image, or any figure with HTML and CSS. This is going back to the idea that CSS allows you to manipulate everything hanging on the page. And then down here, the way you would like talk to something in between HTML and CSS is you would create like an ID, for instance, and saying ID1, ID2. So these are all your HTML elements. You apply CSS rules to these elements, and you can access those elements in your CSS by using the hashtag notation, saying 1, 2, hashtag 1, hashtag 2, hashtag however many you want. And that's how you're able to communicate your CSS to your HTML. And then here's a little meme on the side, saying who we are, CSE students. What are our expectations? Coding, hacking, web developing. What are we actually doing? Just saying hello world. But we are making beautiful hello worlds because we know how to use CSS.
Um, we can now get all these ideas and start making your own website. So you can start being creative now. Um, so thanks a lot, everybody. If you have any questions, put it in the chat. This should be available to you guys on the Discord. And is there anything else that you want to add, Adrian?
I would like to make a